Yes, sir. We're going to go deeply into what we'll call our case, the psychological web that's around us throughout our life. If we're spiritual, we're aware that it's been for many incarnations, they'll say. And it sounds like a big deal, many lives. Well, when you're spiritual, incarnations are nothing. They're like moments in the breeze. So we're going to discuss the idea of the timeless sense of spirituality and why a spiritual person can be here for 20, 50, 60 years and not care about all the trauma and all the disorder and all the macabre circumstances that happen around us, because they know they're here on a trajectory from heaven to end the sense of time, so all the insanity that occurs within the sense of time would be ended forever. You know, they took LSD in the 60s, and even Aldous Huxley, the great genius, or Alan Watts, and they had these transcendent experiences, but this is within everyone to experience. And anything with a drug or alcohol, there's going to be distortion. Anything that releases your case for a moment, oh, you feel relieved from your case. But in spiritual consciousness, relieving your case, meaning if you talk to a psychologist or a lawyer, anything, your individual case, your traumas, the things that make you the person that we believe we might be in this world. I'm saying, I'm making a very clear distinction between a spiritual person, and there are hundreds of millions of spiritual people, like my friend Salome here, who are just, they're not really here, but they're here. And their life is more difficult because they don't know how spiritual they are and how transcendent they really are, and translucent and transubstantial, meaning beyond the body. That's the real self. The part of us that incarnates is insubstantial to the spiritual parts. And so it's the whole idea of stepping away from the sense of time into this timeless moment. That's eternity. And the reason we'll get there today is that there is a God, an actual divine presence that permeates eternity. And within it we can experience unimaginable beauty. It's every moment is beauteous, it's kind, it's dear, it's true, it's involved with a higher state of consciousness beyond our case. So right now I'm going to explain how we're going to deal with our case and experience it, and it will cover all possible circumstances in the world of all that might bring sense of dread or fear or any trepidation whatsoever in our consciousness. You can be a holy man like Gandhi, and in the middle of tremendous pain and trauma, be free of it. He certainly spoke of this state of nirvana that holy men and women experience. There's a place beyond time, beyond your case. And I want to delve into something very quickly right now, because I don't think it's ever been discussed in this way, and that would be important for today's understanding in this empowerment time we have together to experience God as God is, the healer, the doctor of our soul. Our case in this world involves, in this lifetime, or whatever carryover we have, all the trauma, all the trepidation, all the travail that's in our life, and beings around us keep putting that same thing, wherever our weakness is. It might be in relationships. That's certainly been in my life, because I have no weakness, there's nothing wrong with me. There never has been. I'm speaking for all the hundreds of millions of spiritual people in the world. When we're quiet, alone, there's just an openness and a freedom. There's no want, there's no need, there's no desire, there's no fear, there's just, again, that beauteous moment that enlarges, becomes more grand and more wondrous, more perfect. You'll feel an exquisite perfectness in consciousness when you step away from your case, which we're going to do today entirely by using the Tibetan time machine meditation. So where we step apart from our conditioned self. So to get back to the point of we have different experiences in our life, and they might seem familiar from past times or where we're trapped in something and we get a certain rep, we're given outside of ourselves from other a certain rep, we're looked at in a certain way, like we don't handle relationships well or whatever it might be. And we'll just use that one example today, and there are dozens of them. If you're a man, you have to be a man, you have to be tough, and if you're a woman, you have to be lovely and light and free and caring, and all at the same time, and nurturing. And all this is wonderful, but beyond all this is the way that spiritual people relate, where there is no case whatsoever. So the case in this one lifetime involves you had 2 or 3 relationships and they didn't go well, and then your friends look at you a certain way, and maybe there's been a divorce or whatever in your life, and so that's who you are. Whereas in your consciousness, you're not anything about yourself. Your shoe size, your marital standing, your educational standing, and yet these are the things that will be brought up in conversation with others or with others about you all your life, and you sense this and you eventually becomes a trap. Whereas we say Gandhi, or if you would go see Gandhiji, all these spiritual people, like when I've spent time in India, I speak about that a lot because I never left, because you're always there. I'm not the person who traveled on Pan Am to India 50 years ago, or Catalina Island a couple years ago, or whatever. It's all, when you're alive and awake spiritually, you're not that person. I'm addressed to people throughout, well, were you this, or what relationships, and that has nothing to do with me. Even when I had relationships, it had nothing to do with me. You see the point I'm making? And outside of this world system, and this is where you get into these demonic energies, there's out-of-body beings, right? So people talk about this, these near-death experiences where you feel this and that. Well, there are near-life experiences of the dark side, because the devil runs this world. It is an illusion. The sense of time is the basis of it. It's the basic ingredient. In the world, air, oxygen is the basic ingredient. In spiritual consciousness, love and beauty and kindness and depth of bearing and consideration of others. Even though you are transcendent beings, I'll see my friend Carlos, a bit quieter, my friend Salome, just always a courteous, kind person despite all their pains. And you live beyond it. When I see my buddy Vental Rinpoche, it's like, we have horrible lives, if I were to be honest about it. His life is the worst life in the world, but he's a Rinpoche, a holy Lama, there's an equanimity. We look at each other and we never, ever, ever, ever discuss anything like that. I would discuss wanting to teach him to drive at one point, but he's from East Tibet. They called him the cowboy Lama. East Tibet was like the Wild West in Tibet. So he had 8 incarnations he was illumined by a Lama after being like a kind of, not a bandit, but a tough guy, in Eastern Tibet. So he'd be like a John Wayne figure, or whoever plays a cowboy today, or whatever that is, or a tough guy. So, but none of that really exists. So even when he was the cowboy Lama in his first incarnation, he was not here. And even before that, if you are spiritual, in other words, whatever was on him was his case before that. If you wake up spiritually, you've always been awake spiritually. You always have this seed in you. I know people that have spirituality in them, and they're delusional and they're lost. They might be a drunk in a bar, but you'll see the goodness and you know what I mean, in them. So the point is, in this life you have these projections on you from out-of-body beings that make everything, they distort it even worse than it already is. They mix the paint. They serve no good. And they're all lost beings or energies that are like, they look like wasps, whatever, but they can look like anything. It's like when you get a little upset or you're sick and you have all these stuff in your mind, all these delusional kind of aspects, they're not from the brain chemistry, they're anything that's delusional, anything that's unkind, anything that involves anything that's not the afterglow of illumination. When you touch the hand of your child, or blow a kiss to the one you love as they're leaving, on a flight, whatever. You hit eternity there. When you're illumined, that becomes, there is no better word than infinite, unimaginable beauty and purity and wonder. So when you're in the state of conditioning, of letting go of your conditioning, which we'll do eventually here in this meditation, to relieving ourselves of our conditioning. So when you relieve yourself of your conditioning, you're open, you're free, you're kind, you're true. And my buddy Sidney Girard wrote The Transpersonal Self. I'll think of the name of the book. I guess that's it. And it's like a real Jewish, like we call him a mensch, like a Jewish father figure, a spiritual father to everyone. And so I remember being around him. So of course people would be healed by him because he simply was awake to God. In our spiritual life, we are awake to God, and once we're there, there is no case. I mentioned Sydney to go on to this fact that there are people like that have, like Carlos or Mr. Escolta here, who have an illumined spiritual atmosphere, and you feel relaxed and safe around them. Greg teaches people to be safe through martial arts, to be safe in their own skin, he calls it. And it's, that's a method. There are so many, the transpersonal psychology, that's what Sydney developed. So there are all these different ways of means of relieving yourself of your conditioning and being able to stand tall in your own life, no matter what the circumstance. So the point being that because people don't know how to communicate to people, they don't listen to people, they're always pushing each other's buttons. If you could just be very quiet. I do that. People come to see me for 60 years, I don't know, in my own home privately, and I can listen to people because I don't react to it at all. Because I'm not here. If you talk to any of the hundreds of millions of spiritual people in the world, if they afford themselves some quiet at a period in their life, they can step back and say, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Oh my God. And then from that, you can be with others and have them experience that. Whereas most contact, almost all contact with people in the world is very tedious, very trying. It's alarming. They're always on you, and you walk in a room anywhere in your life and you have to be a different person. You capture it, you're very sensitive, so you got to be this person or that person. Carlos is completely free spiritually and physically, and so no one can beat him up, and he just walks in happy everywhere. And so he might not get all this, but he gets all this. The idea is that you have to prove yourself, you have to be different, you have to have something to offer. That, if you're a lovely woman, you walk in a room and everyone, lovely, and that's all you have to be. And if you're a guy, you have to be tough and have a bank account and whatever. I don't know what all these things are with everyone. You have to prove yourself, and you have to be the stereotypical archetype of what that represents. But if you're around, like I say, my friend, the Rinpoche, or whatever, I run into him, like, there's nothing. My buddy, Nobokito, when I run into him now and then, he's like spiritually enlightened, and you don't have to be anything. And nothing matters around you. So when you relieve your case through what we call the time machine meditation, which we're going to do in the next 3 minutes here or so. The out-of-body beings, we all know what's being said. We've all experienced this. It's not just from being, having a bad morning or a bad night from too much alcohol. This pressures that hit you, the dream state. And the dream state to the spiritual one is being awake in the world as though the world exists. I'm speaking a little far further beyond the normal range of conversation with people, but this is, we all feel this, don't we? There's something dreadfully wrong in the world, and there's no social or political circumstance or nothing that a church is going to do or any agency, because above all else in human awareness, our relationship with the Almighty, and there is a God, which is why this is going to work. There is a divine providence behind everything in life that will clear up everything, which is extraordinary. And then you can be around people that, like Carlos is around, that have tremendous tragedies in their life, and they meet Carlos, their relative, or I'm not going to go into it, with an equanimity and a peace and a happiness, hi daddy, or, because they know they're safe with a pure consciousness and a person that won't bend. And so you're safe, your children are safe, and your cat and dog are safe around a real man, a real woman, because your heart is there. You're there for the other person 100% of the time. In California, it's a little rough. Every time someone joins our gym here, we tell them that we're inside a gym here. It's a huge gym, believe it or not, and that it's not them. It's a very disparate kind of consciousness. I'm from South Philadelphia. I go see my friends. Hey, Peter, how you doing? It's all okay. Or my friend Pedro teaches next door here. He's from Brazil, and all of his Brazilian friends come, and it's okay to be happy and smile, and without any fear in your heart. It's not. You just people talk to each other freely and openly like they've known each other all their life, and that every culture is different. In India, there's a warmth and a grace, and you'll never insult anyone. Talking about Nobukito and Japanese culture, when I was there, you can't get any business done without humility. You have to communicate to each other. Even if you're the warlord, you still have to communicate to others with a certain openness and a certain respect and humility to get the day's business done. So if we're humble before God, we'll discover that God is humble before us. There is a higher consciousness, which is what we're talking about, which is why we're going to end our case today, and then all these other energies from out-of-body beings that press in on you and make your life seem worse. And they can just make it directly on you, or they can come to the person that's antagonizing you. And when you get this and see it, I know, like, someone's been working with me for 12 years with black magic and putting needles in the dolls and stuff and all this crazy stuff, and it's a very highly educated, intelligent person, but and they join these groups, I guess, online. I don't know what they do, but I see it. And so I watch it. I don't relate to it. It's okay with me. I have nothing against the person whatsoever, and I just look at it, and you get carried away, and everyone in the world is carried away with something very dark. The world never was. So why would you want to get a big name about yourself, or be known for this or that or the other? Or why wouldn't you want to just apply the time machine meditation? There's so many ways of doing it. Do Sydney's methods, which is very similar, might involve a kind of spiritual hypnotherapy and so forth and so on. These get very complex. I'm going to break it down today. This is what we're doing it to something very simple and absolute divine truth. We are a spiritual presence. There's nothing wrong with us. We're born into this world out of some act of spiritual heroism, because the time sense doesn't exist, and in and of this world it seems to be, which is less than an infinitesimal I wouldn't even know what to call it, because it doesn't exist. Needlepoint in an infinite ocean of grandness of love. It's a love-swept eternity. And when you're there, here, which will be after we do the meditation, there's just an openness. And you can be aware of universes of infinite distance, but there is no distance and no infinite in it because it's all okay. My mom or dad or friends, or see friends around, family friends around people I'm looking at right now, my buddy's mom, and everyone has teachers and presences. My teacher is Baba Beatty or John Buxbays and 1,000 others. Kathleen is my teacher in my life, someone I met for a short time, was so selfless, and her life wasn't working, even though a high-end genius. And she was a doctor and a judge. But you meet people along the way that are holy, that have this sense in them, and they themselves don't know it. I know my friend doesn't know it because life becomes very complex when you have relationships. And I know this is all making sense because it's intuitive, and if we're spiritual, we understand the stuff that's on us, and we know that something beyond that, it makes us that person that had this relationship or was married to so-and-so, or they sell cars, or Rafi fixes fine automobiles or whatever, or someone's the person behind the desk somewhere. And if you're spiritual, you're never one of those things, ever, to yourself and to God, because you know God. And you know you're here out of some empathetic sense of like, there's something wrong here. And yet from the moment you're here, you're tagged as this person from Johnny from such and such street in such and such town, or Susan or Ann. It's all something we escape through the art and science of meditation, of becoming our true self. And to God and to our true self, we are God. That's not being, God gives God, God is a spiritual consciousness. Can't you feel it? Don't you know it? Don't accept it anymore. Don't let them take parking space in your head anymore. Do it through prayer, through love, through kindliness. Just sit down and have a long talk with God every night, and you'll be illumined. You don't have to sit out in the deserts like the old ascetics we read about in the scripture, or whoever. You just have to, he's here. And if you understand what's being said, then you'll break through. You'll break on through to the other side, right? There is a God. You are God's reflection. Nevertheless, God is an infinite purity. You could say love, but it's so much more than that. It's oceans and oceans of a love-swept eternity, but it's so much more than love. It's the sense of love without the urgency or need of love. It's just, or the passion thereof. It's just, a quiet, ephemeral, again, beauteous delicateness. Like my friend Nobakita was enlightened. We battle each other and we don't exist. There's just this open, yet we're still the same person. When you're enlightened, you have this enlightened experience, you'll still be Salome, you'll be Greg, you'll be Rob, when you're enlightened, and when you experience the endless reaches of the universe, and I'm saying this is one of hundreds of millions of experiences, I am the same person, all spirit are the same person. When everything opens up again to heaven, to the gates of eternity, you're still the same person you are emotionally and psychologically right now. Nothing changes except that you drop your case from the beings around you in this world, which are all illusory, to the beings that support them, that we call the devil, or the whatever kind of words you want to use for them. There are these different energies that try to compress you and make you, keep convincing you you are this disturbed person. So it's like a spider web, the whole world in consciousness. We know from the kissing the one we love, or holding the hands of a child, like there's that freedom, that innocence, that desire to just take care of and protect and give, and that's all God is, but it's infinite. When we step apart from our case and don't, you don't have to take it anymore. Okay? So with that in mind, we're going to move through to the time machine meditation. I hope Sydney, my buddy, approves. And we're going to be very quiet inside. We're going to relieve ourselves of our case. And we might have to come back to deal with in the world, and then we'll see how true this is. And then it can take you a few months or a year or 5 seconds or today, and that's it forever. You just release and remember and live a better life. And on and off it'll seem a lot rougher than it even was in the beginning, because you're opening up your true sensibilities and knowing who you are, so the world's going to want to keep you in the trap and make you think you are this person. And it's horrible forces and energies come at you, but you'll see that they're not normal. They're from out-of-body beings and all, and you're going to love being under that attack, and it's horrible. Because you're going to see and know finally and forever that what's being said today is the truth. That there's nothing wrong with you, and this stuff's been trying to put on you, so you'll clear your case in a very short time, in 3 months, 2 months, a year, 1 day, 5 seconds, but as soon as you start seeing it, you're already healed. You got the core of the cancer out of you, and it'll all dissipate, disappear, and be gone, and you'll know it. And you'll have a friendship with God that is, it's like having a baby born every second that's yours, within you, and of you and for you. That sense, that purity, that beauty, that decency, that wonderfulness. Because that's who you are in consciousness when you're freed from this world and all this drama. No one knows anything in the world. There are no experts. I have buddies with doctorates or doctorates on doctorates, and they know nothing of God. It's the individual. My buddy, doctor, I won't say his name, a famous psychiatrist, and yeah, he went to great depths spiritually, so, and he walked away from his 3 doctorates. Meant nothing to him. Point is, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not your problems or the solution to your problems. You're made of light and air and kindness and truth and God and wonderfulness. That's why I can have a sip of wine with friends when there's pressure all day at my buddy's restaurant, and let go the whole day, because you're sitting with people who are happy and open. In other words, we do need to communicate with people. I've had this spiritual condition, like Carlos certainly has all his life, of illumination. You don't know what to do with it, because no one will ever listen to you. In other words, it's like it's like a bingo cage, people's thoughts and communication with each other. And we'll get to the meditation. It's like I-19. It's like you say 3 or 5 words, and one buddy of mine has this habit, and they'll hear a word, and they'll jump something back. I can listen. I've done it with combat veterans and so forth for many years, without reacting to a person whatsoever. I stay in this state of the illumined state, but you can train yourself to not react to anything, to anyone. It's like Greg, you can punch him all day and he won't react, because he's a world champion in martial arts many times over, so you can, he's not going to react to certain Carlos with his black belt, and Rob's 29 feet tall and 600 pounds, so he doesn't care. But the point is, there are different arenas in our life where you are safe. So when you have this idea of illumination in you, you're safe in eternity. And you're in love with God. And God is real. So let's let go of our case. Again, if Cindy approves, Dr. Gerard, and we're going to make it very simple. You can go to night school for this, or go to college and get a degree in different psychology, but this is where it's not hypnosis, it's spirituality, because there is an openness around it, an ocean of presence. And it's you. That's who you are. And that's what you gave up to be here and to help others. In other words, there's infinite oceans of presence that are God and spiritual consciousness, and then there's this one little, it's a very, very bad dream, it's a nightmare, this incarnation into life for 40 years or 90 years or a succession of lifetimes. They're nothingness. They are nothing. You're everything. So when you're spiritual, you can generate this presence to others. You hold their hand and they feel it. Like a mom with Salome for their kids, just they know they're safe when mommy's there. So we're going to count backwards using one of thousands of self-enhancement or spiritual enhancement techniques that are available to us all. And in that, at the end of that, we're going to be beyond our case. From 100 to 90 in Tibet, you do this over a long period of time, and everyone's purifying themselves, even though they're already spiritual. But just thinking a moment back to my time with my friends there, and like someone asked me, when you're in Tibet, like that, I'm in Tibet now. When you're there, you never weren't there. With my friend John Buckbasin, Dr. Buckbasin. When did you last see him? Well, we've seen each other twice in 50 years, and we looked at each other, and we just, these 50 years don't count. My friend Edward Wilkinson, we all started the Zen Center together, and 3 other guys, and we're all like happy. We're there now. So there is an enlightenment experience because there is a God, and we're all going to feel it. At 90, we're going to do time machine meditation, which involves letting go of our case. Whatever happened to us will be dissolved, and we'll realize we're in heaven already. It's a place in your consciousness. And then this courageous sense we have within us of faith, called faith. Faith in God. It's an experience. It's not something that we're hoping, oh, God will take care of us at such point. We're not going to worry anymore ever. Faith will turn into God himself in spiritual awareness. And we're there at 90. And then we'll have this ability to help our friends and loved ones in ways that are rarely known. But the noble no longer be rarely or known or a case. At 90, we let go of all the conditioning of this and all of our lifetimes. At 90, we don't need all the ritual, although that's here, in consciousness. I'm going to count back from 100 to 90. At which point, in our consciousness, we're going to let go of all the forces that impinge upon us, the finenesses of our soul, and we'll be free. Thank God Almighty. Free at last. Remember that from Dr. King? When he spoke, you felt that grace and dignity of heaven, and felt that you were deserved beauty in your life and dignity. You deserve beauty in your life and dignity. And we won't get it from other people, or we rarely will, but we'll always have it from Father God. We're there free and clear and clean. We owe no one money or allegiance or time. At 90, we let go of all of our conditioned experience of our life in this world, and we'll see that everything's been said is true. We're a divine incarnation. We're here to clarify the air and to free all of our friends to dream good dreams. We're there at 90. It's in consciousness. Let go of everything of this life that's been untoward. $100. $99. $98. Just the breathing. Relax all the large muscle groups and every joint in your body. Feel grounded in the earth and then transcendent of the earth and moon and stars. You are an infinite expression of God. $96. $95. Things will keep fluffing off of us in the hours and days after this meditation. We'll feel the presence of all of our friends from Tibet, from our family lineage. From Carlos's holy heart and soul. From the joy of Jesus Christ. The courage of Mahatma Gandhi. They're with us forever. We're part of them. They're part of us. There's one God. We're one. There's one beingness. It's an infinite ocean. And we're there by relieving ourselves of the conditioning of this lifetime at 90. It's quite simple because it's true. Because there is a God. And you are God's reflection and presence. 94. You're wonderful and good and true and remarkable and intelligent. God knows. We let go of the pressures on us forever. 93. There are no details. It's all in consciousness. We arrive at this higher consciousness that we felt many times in this life at 90. You are holy. Holiness is very natural. It's just an openness that we see in our children's eyes. Except it's expanded infinitely in your heart at 90 because you're good. 92. $91. $90. Thank you. People in this world have all this drama and they're on the device or whatever all day and night. And my buddies up in the mountains and my Frida Beatty, the abbotess, they're always with me. I know her now. She was born in someone's family I know. We're friends now like we were then. And we really have to talk about it. It's just there. You don't think about it. It's in your consciousness. You wouldn't even tell people around you because it's just just there. My friend Kathleen is my teacher. She's God. And all these people, when you get into this higher consciousness, you'll see certain people like they might have disturbance this lifetime, but you'll know them in the quiet of their heart. So it's not about having the love or the affection or this or that. It's they simply know. My friend Ventil Rinpoche, he's like, we have horrible lives, I'm going to be very honest, but just no one knows it, and it's not what anyone thinks it is. It's just a lack of respect of the world. You're an illumined being and you're here getting trashed all day and night, and you can only give so much. Your heart wants to give 25 hours a day, every second, every moment. Like, can't you feel him? Don't you know how wonderful existence is? Can't you quiet this thing down for a moment and just listen to the person next to you without reacting? That's all it takes to illumine a whole world. But the world is a mistaken consciousness. The sin in the scripture, the old scripture, meant separation from God. These are holy men in the desert, not, they didn't get degrees from wherever. They were in psychotherapy, they were holy men. And they saw the universe quietly, because one God means in consciousness. Not go fight the Baal or the other gods down the street. There's just an openness to unimaginable ecstasy and joy and happiness and sweetness and brilliance and purity and wonderfulness. A you-ness. It's you. Isn't it you? There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing being held back from God that's yours, because everything that God is yours to God. From time to time he speaks to us. It's so wonderful. And then the world will be more on us at that point, and then the beings beyond the beings on us. And that's why in Tibetan then you see all these mandalas of all these beings and all, and they represent certain energies and presences that are good, bad, or indifferent. One might represent decency and kindness. One might represent spiritual expression. One might represent fearlessness. Fearlessness not being tough, it's being not reacting to anything. In consciousness. Everything is in consciousness. There's one God, one truth, one joy, one wisdom. And it's oceans of intelligence and dimensions of gathering up other universes of such depth and bearing. It's anything in the world in human consciousness that is like constricted and conditioned doesn't exist. So as soon as you burst free, then you'll see there are infinite, the star systems here don't exist. They're part of the illusion. And anything that fascinates is the illusion. That's Satan. That's Satan's consciousness. This, look at this, look at this. Anything to get you away from the infinite happiness and the joy of the breath of life that comes only from God. And there is a God, and there is a throne of grace. But these are universes of wonder. And again, the words, when you read fine poetry or see great art or whatever, they'll touch it. Or that first feeling of love, or that you'll live for someone and love and just appreciate it. Appreciation, what you appreciate you become and you are. You appreciate fine art. I like fine art. I look at it and I can't breathe when I look at certain things, and then because it's so wonderful, and how could that be? And imagine looking at something that's not a physical representation of beauty, but beauty itself. God is beauty. And you're enthralled, infinite beauty, and you'll be enthralled forever. Once you drop your case, it doesn't matter what they put on you. You're this, you're that. He's the doctor, he's the lawyer. You're nothing, I'm nothing. To God, God is nothing. There's just this openness. This is all in consciousness, in our awareness. God gives everything that God is every moment. So as soon as you escape the parameters of day-to-day living, God's here. God will look out through your eyes for the rest of your life as soon as you step away from your case. Using the time machine, Tibetan mandala, whatever you want, meditation, whatever ways you do it. Just sit down and talk to God and get it over with already. There's not enough time for prayers. Forget the churches or the synagogues, or just get on your knees to God. And God doesn't require that for a moment. You do it out of you love God so much, and you want everyone else to be free. My friends that would do prostrate in Tibet and so forth, go around the mountains, it's not because they're seeking God they want everyone to feel the joy and the happiness and the wonder and the grace and the decency and the intelligence that they feel. So that's all they want to do. You have to go? You can go? Okay. So when you give yourself to this, then you'll understand, my different friends that are spiritual, that it's something in your conscious awareness. You peer through everything to eternity all the time. And you can't explain it to anyone. So sometimes you might like to drink or whatever, or smoke pot or something, but then as soon as you have this experience, you might say, oh my God, there's always a distortion with anything. But it's good to eat and drink and love and care and be happy and hop, skip, and jump on the way to the church. And you are the church. And it's not a building. Your church is from dawn to dawn. You are an illumined presence, a holy sight to me and to God. Forget the conditioning, the stuff put on us by the beings in this world and the people's eyes. Who simply, if you're quiet, like I can look at my friend Kathleen, my teacher, or Carlos, or anyone in this room, and I look through this stupid little lifetime and see you for who you are. That was, it's in your heart. Where your treasure is, there shall your heart also be, right? The kingdom of God is within. Means consciousness. It's not looking here, where's the kingdom? And the kingdom of God is infinite presence, infinite joy and wonder and happiness and awareness. So as soon as you experience it once, then the rest of your life, all your clairvoyant activities are open and clairaudience. You see and feel angels, not these stupid beings that run this stupid world. It's infinite nothingness. Please talk to God. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Skolta.